Thank you, everyone. I am extremely honored to be here today. Thank you to my Creative Mornings family. I've been coming to this thing for 5 years. You guys, maybe got a little commemorative poster for my doodles. That's in chronological order from my very first Creative Mornings in 2019, right up until last month. Almost all of them. I want to thank, again, my Creative Mornings family, Cirrus Visual, who there's Brandon out there, and my full Cirrus Visual family that has supported me throughout all of these years, has supported the community. We're a big part of this community, and I think it shows. And I appreciate the appreciation. Appreciate my family coming out, my folks coming, my kids. Breathe. All right, I'm not going to get all out. I read the comics every day, thanks to my mom who sends them back for my son and I. And this is no joke. Today's comic. This is Pickles. You're coloring outside the lines, Grandpa. I am? Yeah, way outside. Well, coloring inside the lines is all very well and good, Nelson, but real creative people can't be restricted by lines. They color wherever they feel like it. That's what real artists do. Are you a real artist, Grandpa? Not exactly. I just have bad bifocals, but it's similar. It's true. It's funny because it's true. I turned 51 last week, and my eyesight, I call these scribbles. I call them doodling, sketching, drawing. Call them doodles. Thanks, everybody. You guys ready? Did everybody have coffee?
Yeah.
You guys are going to need it because here's the deal. I usually give this talk in an hour, and I tell people I cannot teach you how to draw in an hour. However, I can teach you how to see, and then that unlocks the principles, right? I definitely can't do it in 20 minutes, but I think we're going to break down some of these basic principles, and you're going to relate them later in life. You're going to keep practicing later. There's also going to be a post-event doodle workshop where we're going to walk out into the streets, and I'm going to be able to continue my talking over there. I like to talk. Get that from my mom, too. All right, you guys sketchbooks? You have 2 minutes to draw this building. 2 minutes. That's it, 9:16. Sorry, we got to move. All right, you ready? Pencils down. It's okay. It'll work out better for the before and after shots. Okay, why me? Thank you to Emily. You already explained a lot of this. I went to school a lot. I have degrees in fine arts. The University of Arizona, my master's degree is what brought me here to Tucson from Illinois. I did teach drawing as an adjunct there, and I do teach Illustrator now. I'm a total Illustrator geek, so you guys know me by now, probably most of you. Never not creating, one of my favorite hashtags, because as an art director, I have to go home and be creative with my own stuff. Also, no time for Netflix hashtag. These sketchbooks, I filled these in about 4 months. I call it analog versus digital. Like I print my own shirts. If you see me wearing a t-shirt, I printed this in my garage. So I printed this on Super Bowl Sunday. Mazzy's wearing a Captain Crunch. I'm an art director at Cirrus Visual. I've been there over 20 years in the design and print industry rather. And I'm a father, I'm a skater, I'm a cyclist, nonstop creative. Oodles and doodles, here's my credentials. I draw stuff. This is usually, like I said, I'm going to have to skip over some stuff. This is the meat, though. You can take some pictures if you want. This is really what we're here for. We're going to learn how to see. Why? Live in awe. You're going to see things differently. The intro paragraph to this talk was actually really appropriate because you will see the world differently. Increase mindfulness. Who can explain what mindfulness is? Mazzy, go.
So mindfulness is...
Quickly.
I can't do it.
Go ahead, Nancy. I'm sorry.
Anyways, it's a way of being more aware of your surroundings and your thoughts and your state of being and really living in the moment.
Thank you, Mazzy. Being present, right? My kiddo gets it. I wish I got it back then. We can all be more mindful. Remembering people, places, things. I can tell you, I can remember smells of places, but way better than any photograph you could ever remember than if you sketch something. In that scene, you are there. Bonus, kill time. Pick up your sketchbook instead of a phone. If I'm in a waiting office or waiting room, that's the best way. Oh, and you get better at drawing. Like I said, this is a lifetime journey. You're not going to know how to draw today. But why learn how to draw? It's a universal communication tool, right? We can speak language with writing, and not with writing, but with visual elements. Who, what, when, or who? I love buckets, the who, what, why, when. Who? Everyone. If you guys want to teach your grandkids or your grandma to do this, see me after. I will give you sketchbooks, right? pass this along to everybody you know. This is way beyond just for creatives. I make a point here, like everybody drew. We all drew as kids. When did you stop? Why did you stop? Somebody told you that you weren't good, or you looked over your neighbor's drawings and you weren't as good as theirs. We all have it in us. You tell me you don't know how to draw, I will say, don't get me started. When? Anytime, man. All the time. Right now, you guys could be doodling. Good job, Emma. You can record your events, you're traveling. Somebody just told me this morning, I just met a nice gentleman that was going to be traveling. Like, it's perfect. What? Anything. Look around. Really. Like, you can draw your hand. It's always available. You want some funky things? Do a blind contour and you get some interesting art. Urban sketching, I say, is one of my favorites because it puts things in perspective. And I say that totally pun intended. And the people, landscapes, still, you can apply these principles to everything. And then, of course, you get into creative and Zen and doodles and stuff. Okay, how to doodle. The materials, I prefer pen over pencil. Why? It's clean and it's committed. You are going to F up. It's okay. They're all scribbles. It doesn't matter. You don't have to show anybody anyways. My pen, the first one that you can find, this free one that you have in your hand from Cirrus works just fine. I prefer a Micron, Sakura Micron. Number 2 is my preferred, but I have a whole set. You can see them. I have them numbered, so I can have thick and thins. Paper, any paper. The free sketchbook you got from Cirrus Visual, it's a great start. Keep it in a sketchbook because you can keep it contained, unlike your kids' drawings that you get from school and they're flittering the refrigerator. It's fun to talk. It's making a point. Instead of loose leaf papers all over, you got them contained in a sketchbook. My favorite though, moleskin. I'm gonna geek. I'm a nerd out on you. It's my favorite because it has a stitched edge instead of the stapled edge. We call it saddle stitching in the print industry. With the stitched edge, I can lay it flatter and I can have, just more spreads. And I don't know, I just like the feel of the stitched edge of a moleskin. You guys good? $14, $12 for or maybe $13 for a 3 or 4 pack of these. I go through one sketchbook every 4 months and I go through one pen per sketchbook. So I order this twice a year, order this once a year. Any questions? Good. Proud doodles. I have to throw this out here. My kiddo Mazzy, ballpoint pen and a highlighter in a handmade sketchbook. You don't need a fancy Micron. You don't need moleskin sketchbook. You can take loose leaf paper and a ballpoint pen.
Boy, I'm not 16.
Learning how to see. That was a couple years ago too, by the way. Learning how to see. Now we're getting into some more juice of this. How am I on time?
You've got 15 minutes.
I'm going to slow down. This should be comfortable for you guys, right? It should be an enjoyable experience. Entertaining, I get it, but Okay. In all seriousness, though, this is where it all comes from, is this book by Betty Edwards called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. I learned from this book. I still have the first edition off of this mind-blowing science revelations of the 70s when they figured out that the right and left brain was split. Now they're on the 4th edition of it and still legit. Betty Edwards is still alive. Her son runs the program, but I've taught with this book. I've learned from this book. It is where it all comes from. And it is turning off the left brain and letting your right brain thrive and survive. You guys understand the right brain, left brain? Because some of you have nodded, you kind of hear of it. It goes into it. It's like the left mode is your logical, your linear thinking side, and your right brain is your creative, open side, your liberal, creative, artistic side of your brain. Your left brain is usually in control of things. And it usually pushes your right brain to the side. Our goal is to shut our left brain up and to let our right brain speak. Okay, how to see. This main principle, I'm going to step away so that I can shout this, because this is it. Draw what you see, not what you know. Draw what you see, not what you know. Your left brain is going to tell you what it thinks it sees. When you all drew that building at the first part, some of you might have drawn square buildings. Your lines might be square because your brain says buildings are square. And I can show you before and after shots that show you after this talk, your building's not going to be square because your right brain is going to see it and say, oh, it's not square. Shut up, brains. Tables aren't flat. And perspective, right? That's where the word perspective comes in handy. You're focused on recording perception, period. There's no labels. You're not labeling things. As soon as you start labeling things, that's a building, that's a door. That's your left brain taking over. You're only looking at lines and shapes. You're in the zone, you're present. That's where the mindfulness comes in. I do my little, what I call etch-a-sketches. I take a stroll in the afternoon from work. I come back a completely different person. My brain has completely reset. Call it etch-a-sketch, right? You guys remember that toy? You shake it up. So it's really appropriate time. I'm so in the zone. I used this story. We were on our trip last year with my family, and I was so in the zone. I'm sitting there sketching and doodling, and then I get out of the zone. I'm like, where's my family? Holy shit. And they had already moved like stores down the way, so I had to go find them and stuff. But it's true. It's like when you're in the zone, you guys have heard of being in the zone, in the flow, you can appropriate this to lots of different elements of your life. It really does come back. I started practicing meditation a few years ago, and I realized I've been practically meditating for years, just putting two and two together. Okay, you guys ready? You got 30 seconds, less than a minute. You are going to only draw the left side only. Turning our left brain off. Draw 2 lines from the top and bottom. Draw 2 lines, horizontal lines over. And then draw the right face based off of the left side that you drew. Does that make sense? You already drew the left side. You're drawing the right side based off of the left side. You know what you just did there? You turned your left brain off. Your brain doesn't know a nose backwards. It knows a line that's going in this direction, that's going in this little angle, in this curve. You're turning your left brain off. Did anybody feel that? A little glimpse of it? It's hard. It takes time before you start knowing when you're in right mode. Other ways to access right mode. This is an artistic or artist technique. It's called blind contours. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you have nothing else to draw, you look around, you don't have anything else to draw, pull out your sketchbook. We're lucky here in Tucson. We have mountains all around us. And it is the easiest thing. You just let your eye crawl along the top of any surface. Again, I prefer mountains. And don't look at the paper. That's why it's called blind contour. Don't look at the paper. It's a great way to pass time. It establishes hand-eye coordination, and it really makes some fun drawings. I think you could, I think it kind of looks, here's my latest one. It kind of looks like fine art in a way. I think you could hang this and be like contemporary fine art. Blind contours. All right, so those are techniques that you guys can all try later. Another technique, this is a very popular. Did I skip one?
Nope.
Oh, I skip. Okay, there's one in here that is, okay. Turning upside down. Yeah, turn anything upside down. So if you have a picture of a chair, that was the sample that I had of a picture of a chair, turn it upside down and you shut your brain off because you're not looking at a chair anymore. You're looking at legs and not leg and the legs. You're looking at lines and angles and how they all relate to each other. So turning anything upside down turns off that left brain. We kiddos were going through that in our art class, which was pretty neat. Okay, how to draw. Now we're actually getting into some actual techniques of drawing. I leave this slide in here. I had to cut a lot of stuff out of here. I'm sorry. I'm good. I'm glad I'm slowing down, but I did have to cut some slides out. I left this in because it mentions bicycles because I love riding a bike. It's totally true though. I can teach y'all how to ride a bike, but until you get on it and get off it and fall and get back on it and try yourself, I can't teach you that. I can't teach you that it takes momentum, that feeling that to move forward. Like you have to experience that. So keep doing it. Just keep trying. I got MFA like over 30 years ago, and I'm still learning how to see. I say learning how to draw, but I'm learning how to see. Okay, I do have to get into some technical stuff because for me, urban sketching, what they call it, urban sketching is drawing buildings basically, right? If you can see perspective, you got to turn on your left brain just a little bit. I'm sorry, but if you can see perspective, you will see the world differently, and this will start making more sense. Who's had a drawing 101 class where you've gone through 1-point perspective? Anybody understand 1-point perspective? Fan-freaking-tastic. I don't have, that's the first little thing to get over this. Oh, is that 1-point perspective? There's 1 point. Everything goes back to 1 point. It's the easiest way to make like a 3D looking drawing, right? You draw 1 point, draw a bunch of lines going back to it. You can make railroad tracks and light poles and stuff. But really what we're concerned with is vanishing or 2-point perspective, which has 2 vanishing points. Who can define what a vanishing point is?
Draw blank.
What's that?
Draw blanks and birds.
Yeah, well, specifically, well, 2-point were 2 lines. Well, all lines would converge into 2 points at the horizon line. What's the definition of a horizon line? Well, the definition of a horizon line is where your eye meets the horizon. My vanishing points are higher than you all, because you're all down here. Your horizon line's down here. My horizon line's up here, because it's where your eye meets the horizon. That's where your vanishing points are, and that's where they're all going to. I joke here, like, ain't no ruler long enough. I had to use my favorite program, Adobe Illustrator, to show this little graph where you can start to see that in real life, on an architect's plan, these lines are parallel, right? These lines are all parallel. But in real life, when you're looking at it, they're all parallel, but they're all receding to a certain point. This is somewhere off of down Broadway, right? At the end of Broadway, and I don't know, some Alberta. And then down here, this is where we're at. We're close. We're actually pretty much close down to this vanishing point down the end of Stone. So all of these lines on the north side of this building go down Broadway. These lines are going down Stone. Does that make sense? Awesome. If you've understood 1 point, you should get 2 points. All vertical lines stay vertical. Keep that in mind. So I should have mentioned that first. All vertical lines stay vertical unless you got some fisheye lens or some crazy angle. All vertical lines are always vertical. All the other lines are going back to 2 points. If the vertical line's not vertical, that's where you get into 3-point perspective, right? Because that vertical line has to go somewhere too. Make sense? This is crucial to see. If you can see that building that you guys already drew, you can see those lines aren't straight. If you look at that building straight, it's straight. Finding a composition is very important. I look personally, as I'm doing my little doodles and sketches, I'm looking for a scene with depth, with leading lines, with major shapes, and interesting composition. To find an interesting composition, you go back to the rule of thirds. If you've ever been in an art class, you might have heard of the rule of thirds. It's just a basic way to organize the page. You can see my example of the St. Augustine Chapel, or a cathedral downtown, a really lovely space that has really nice perspective going on in there. Drawing from life, this is what's crucial. There's no edge of the paper when you're drawing from life. And I think that's the most challenging part, is that when you're drawing, I don't know where if you're drawing from a photograph, the edges are there, right? I know where the edges are, and I can relate that to the edges of my paper. But when I'm drawing in real life, where's the edges of the photo or the paper? That's where viewfinders come in. You guys have all seen, you can get down to just your thumbs. You've seen this, right? People doing this. That's just a viewfinder. You can make viewfinders. You can buy fancy ones that have the rules of thirds built into them, but honestly, you start seeing it yourself. But using your own, it's okay. You can look like an artist out there. And avoid floaters. Don't draw stuff in the middle of the page, please. Draw the whole scene. Let the whole scene be an environment and an experience. Sorry, I'm going to use Mazzy again as an example, who shows us an example of negative space, because we've always joked in my family that it's such a harsh word for negative space. There's no negative space. It's just as positive as the positive space. We need negative space to make an interesting positive space. Does that make sense? It's not the background. That shoves it to the background. It doesn't give it its rightful presence. Negative space is huge. Here, I'll point. You guys get what I'm saying? Negative space is the shapes that are created by the objects that are falling off the page. There's negative space. Look at that. That shape right there is just as interesting positive as it is negative. Props to my kiddos, man. They learn. They pick it up. Any questions so far? Go time. Now we are ready. Be confident. You just got to dig in. You have a pen. I like the first line. Usually it's the first line. It's the vertical line that's closest to me. It's just some way to start. But get the whole scene. Let the whole scene float it all out. Call them scribbles, man. Scribble those things out. I use this as an example, the Japan drawing in the lower left. That's at Epcot Center. I filled my sketchbook in our vacation last year. And so each stop, I would start sketching while they're shopping in the gift store, which Japan has the best gift shop at Epcot Center. You know why? Because I kept drawing and they weren't coming out. I'm like, all right, well, I'll cheap dye on some more. And so I kept digging back in, getting to the details. And I'm like, what? Then they finally came like, my drawing's not finished. But it gave me the example to use here because you can see a partially unfinished drawing. And I think it's actually kind of cool. But it does show the example of get the whole scene sketched out first and then work into the details. Most of my sketches, my doodles, I call them, are 10 minutes or less standing downtown. I walk downtown, I find a cool site, I draw it. Sometimes I'll set a timer, usually I don't, but they're under 10 minutes standing. There's no time for thinking. Just get it all out. You don't know who's going to come around, stand, and kick out. Here's the trick. I should have bolded these things. And if, again, people have taken art classes, you might have heard of these tricks before. It's okay. You can totally use as little crutches, if you will, using your pen as a ruler and an angle finder. And I'll start with an angle finder because that's the easiest one. This goes back to seeing angles and lines. Using your pen to find the angle, and then you bring it down to your paper, and there's my angle. Does that make sense? You're finding it. Do you see people doing this in public? They're not orchestrating anything, and they're not a madman down on the corner trying to orchestrate an invisible symphony. I'm trying to find an angle of that building, and then I pull it down to my paper. Does that make sense? Shut up. That 15.
10.
I slowed down too much. A ruler, use it as a ruler. They're showing it over there as being a ruler so that you can, if you partition it out, you're like, oh, the top is twice the size of the leg. And that's how you can use your pen as a ruler. Making your mark. Let me just send you out into the world and tell you there are no outlines in real life. There's no outlines, right? Look at me. Am I outlined? No. Do I need a pen to outline me? Probably, unless you're using value. How do you use value with a pen? It's not a pencil. I can't shade. You make marks. There's all kinds of different mark-making techniques from hatching and pointillism. But you can see over there, there's an examples of how you would shade a sphere without using outlines. And if you can see value, you can see the world. Squint. There's a trick in there. I mentioned it somewhere else. Squint to see true value of things. That's an artist trick. Adding weight to the focal areas, starting with a quick and loose gesture marks. Final exercise. Perfect timing, my friends. Look at this. We're down. We did it. You got 2 minutes. You're going to do this again. And you're going to send me this before and afters. I'm going to beg you to please. You guys all have my business cards and my Facebook or Instagram, sorry. Facebook. I haven't used that in years. Yeah, my Instagram. You're going to send me before and after shots, okay, of this. Please send me before and afters. Do your best. I'm going to stop talking so you can go into write mode. Finally, I'll get through the last couple of slides and we can wrap this up. I've drawn that building a lot. This is only like 6 of them. I've drawn that just 600 times maybe. No, maybe not that many, but I've drawn that building a lot. It's the closest one to Cirrus Visual. It's my easiest access. I can get there in a couple of minutes. Finishing touches, adding date and details. I always add the date, the weather. I always add the temperature, and I can see it just helps you remember that scene. Adding your notes, your little critiques on it. Adding color if your time and material allows. Like these sketchbooks wouldn't handle watercolor, but if you have a watercolor sketchbook, I suggest taking 3 photos. 1, take a photo of the actual scene. 1 of your drawing, and then 1 of both together. I kind of like to see that comparison. And I say bonus is you can take a selfie with the drawing, because if you know me, I like taking my selfies. And here I am with Minnie Mouse. I drew Minnie Mouse and she liked it so much, and I got a picture with Minnie Mouse. So I kid about that, but it's true. Finish it later, make a new drawing. Do it along, keep trying, keep going, find your style and elements you're proud of. You can do things like I take a photo, when I did a sketch, and then I made a whole watercolor set to send out to people of this beautiful birds of paradise. Here's what I want to end with really is that you can apply these techniques to anything. We're talking about buildings, but you can apply this learning how to see to anything. Faces in particular, I know are hard, and so are hands. I don't have techniques on hands, but faces, if you know the basic principles, I make a really good example because I got this bald egg-headed shape that really matches that diagram very well. Your eyes, my eyes, everybody's eyes are in the middle of your head. They're not up here. They're in the middle of your head. Got it? There are other principles. The width of your mouth is the distance between the center of your eyes. That's the width of your mouth. Your eyes are one eye apart. So you have two eyes. If you can imagine one eye in the middle, that's how wide apart your eyes are. Some people are a little thinner, and then maybe some people are a little, but for the most part, I don't know anybody like that, so I don't feel that bad about it. But still, it's true. Your eyes are one eye apart. Just look at what you see. Look at what you see, not what you know. Draw what you see, not what you know. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Creative Mornings. Here's visual.